Hey there, guys. Great big howdy do to you out there. And last I left you about 5, 6 days ago, I was working on that Leedy Broadway parallel snare drum. And I was so reluctant to lose that screw, break it off in there, that I decided to soak it for 5, 6 days, whatever it's been. And it's been sitting here soaking in a vat of, let me show you, a vat of Marvel Mystery Oil. Good stuff. And I had it sitting like this in there, in this, like a, right in there. And I just pulled it out of there a minute ago. And let me show you what I've got here. So, we've been trying to get the screw out of here, but I'm so reluctant to break it. You can see that screw right there. That I decided to just hold off and let her soak. So let's give it a shot. So I have turned this a little bit, and it seems to be moving. So what I do is I move it so much, and then I bring it back, and then I maybe squirt her down a little bit with this white lithium, just a grease sort of a thing. And then what I've also done is I've taken this hacksaw and I'm trying to get this slot a little deeper. So I've been going over this a little bit and just working on this screw here. I just don't want to lose it. So I've done what I think I can there. I'm also going to try to get a little bit better screwdriver. I just can't afford to lose this screw. So let's see. Are you guys okay? You can see. So I'll use this screwdriver here and let's see if we can get it anywhere. I've got to get a screwdriver that fits really well. Otherwise, strip it all out. Oh, look at that. Oh, nice. Yahoo! All right, man. Look at that. Came right out. Beautiful. All right. Check it out. There's that wonderful screw. Yeah, the top got a little bit messed up, but we're all right with that. And there's our other part that we got to use. And so that's cause for celebration. There's the hinges or jaws, whatever you want to call them. I call them jaws. I don't know why. I just do. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to maybe clean this up a little bit. And before I do anything, why don't I dump this Marvel Mystery Oil back in its container, and I'll be right back at it. Well, what I've done here is I've cleaned up a small area. This is okay. This is what it looks like, uncleaned. Okay. This is basically what it looks like. Now I've cleaned a small area and I buffed this area out. As you can see, it's a lot shinier. And that's not a finished buff by any means, but what I'm concerned about is these deeper cracks, especially this one here. It's open. And some of these other ones are slightly open. So my harebrained idea here is to try and close these. And I just thought maybe, look at, here's some really bad ones here. You can hear it when I rub on them. It's pretty bad here. And why I'm thinking about closing them up is just for the future. Thinking that maybe I don't want it to split, you know, completely split. And so I've done a little bit of homework. And I came up with this epoxy. Bob Smith's Industries. Supposed to have really good reviews. I think you just mix these 50-50. And you get, let's see, the working time is 5 minutes. And it'll bond to fiberglass, foam, glass, metal, wood. And it's the good thing about this one is that I'm thinking that it dries real clear for one, but it doesn't completely get real hard, and it'll allow it to kind of expand and contract. So so it's a full cure within 15 minutes. So, well, I thought maybe I'd try it in a small area and then maybe sand the shell down with a really fine, you know, not the exact, just the area where I worked on it. Sand it down, and then, oh yeah, it's good for hard plastics too, which is basically what we're dealing here. Sand it in lightly and then buff it out and see how it fills and what I think of it. So I'm going to try that, and we'll see if I want to continue with that. So I'll try this in a not so obvious area, and I'll let you see a little bit of it as we go. Okay, so I've got the equal parts of resin in this container. I'm just going to mix them around. I'm not mixing it much because I just don't know how this is going to work. Mixing it up with a brand new razor blade. Okay, let's just try a little bit of this. Here it is on the end of that razor blade. And I'll show you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to push this stuff into this crack, these two cracks. It recommended me, it recommended sanding it. Sanding the surface down a little bit, so I did that. So let's just see how this stuff turns out and if it's workable afterwards. Because if it's not workable, I won't go any further. I have to be able to sand it and buff it after. But it's just an idea. You got to try things, don't you? All right. So I'm going to let that dry. Probably overnight, really, because it's not going to really tell me anything right away. So there's what it looks like. It doesn't look like it's filling it real good, but really what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find out if I can work with it after. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'll show you the results. Meanwhile, as we're waiting for epoxy to dry, I've been digging through my parts, and since these throw-off levers are nickel, I found some nickel Leedy hoops from this period that I've probably had for many years. I knew they'd come in handy, and so these will be nice on the drum. And I found some nickel X lugs. Isn't that beautiful Art Deco look to them? And I thought these Leedy lugs would go good with it, because these chrome ones are just so beat to heck that I really don't want to put them on there. I mean, the drum's never going to be perfect, but I'd like it to be a little bit nicer. So we'll ditch these chrome parts that are on the drum. We'll go all with nickel, because number one, these rods they'll never shine up. Let me clean one up real quick. Okay, there's a little bit of that's just with the wheel, the wire wheel. And I'll give it a buff real quick. Okay, so that's just a real quick buff, and I'll just give you a glimmer of what it's going to look like. And this isn't even by any means a finished buff, but that looks a little bit better. They'll come out way better than that, but here's before and after. So you can pretty much see it's a completely different story. So we're going to do that, and we'll ditch all these other parts and try to make this drum all the same plating. I think that'll work out well. I had the foresight years ago to collect all these parts, and it pays off. Okay. Hey, good morning to you. It's the next day. We're working on that Leedy snare drum, and we've got to try things before we know if they're going to work. So that's why we should test them on small spots. So let me show you where we're at. I put that epoxy in on a small spot, and you know, it didn't seem to really do any good. So here's basically what it looks like before we're cleaning and everything, and before we've cleaned it. And then look at, I've gone around here to this spot where I did do some epoxy work, and I buffed it out. I gave it a 400 grit sand. That's not a complete buffing job there. You can still see it's a little bit, still a little bit murky there, but that's not a finished buff. But what I'm finding is we're getting a little bit of compound in these cracks, and how we get that out, I don't know. So I'm just going to continue around here. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just lightly sand this shell all the way around, and then you know, buff it out, and then live with it the way it is. Just bring the luster back, and you know, it's never going to be perfect, so why not just make it livable? So that's what I'm going to do. And so what I've been doing here is, like I say, going around the shell and giving it a 400. I think I'm going to switch over here to 500, or maybe even 600. Let me get some of that. Yeah, I've got some 600 grit here. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that on this. I'll get my trusty sanding block out and just give it a once over. Pretty much like this. That'll smooth out some of these cracks from sticking up too. And in time, well, I don't know if they'll raise or not. We'll see. I won't be around, but the next generation of drum collectors will have to deal with this. I'd much rather leave this sparkle on here. For one, I think it's kind of cool looking all nasty like this, and I've actually got another green sparkle Radio King from the late 50s or early 60s that's got a kind of a damaged look to it too. All spotted, and well, maybe I'll bring that out here and show you. It's pretty cool looking. I love that drum. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to continue around here. I won't bore you with the process, but you can pretty much see I spend quite a bit of time per panel and clean her all up, and then I'll buff it down and we'll see where we are. Oh, here's show and tell time. I was telling you about this green sparkle. It's a Radio King solid maple shell, 8x14, center lugs. I prefer the center lug drums. Number one, they're really rare, and I think they let the shell breathe a little better. When you've got double lugs, I've already gone over my theory about how they tend to jack away from the shell and bend the shell all up, whereas these, it's just less metal on the shell. I think they sound better. But look at this drum. Is this cool or what? Looks like a leopard. And yes, it's very faded, but it's still very cool. And I used to use this on a lot of gigs. And, solid maple shell, original snare wires. I've looked high and low for one of these drums, and I've never seen but one other one. A silver sparkle one showed up on eBay about 5 or 6 years ago, and I can't remember, but I think it might have had some problems, holes. But I didn't need 2 of them, so I didn't go for it. So anyway, that's just a little bit of show and tell. Just kind of fun if you're into green drums. Right, so we've got this thing all sanded down, 600 grit, all the way around. And I'm probably going to go ahead and buff this badge out because it's so nasty. It's just too nasty looking, so I'm going to go ahead and go over it. So that's what we've done all the way around. And I'll show you a little bit of the buffing process if you want to see it. Just put the shell down here on this rubber mat here. camera here for you can see. And I use this Super Duty rubbing compound, 3M, pretty good stuff. Only complaint I have about this stuff is it tends to harden up at the bottom. I have to completely mix it every time. So I'll put a little bit on there. Turn your buffer up to about maybe halfway. You don't want to get too fast. As you can see, you're getting quite a nice sheen on it. Now that's not a finished buff. I use a different material for that, but shine's coming back. You don't want to use too much, because you want to get this thing buffing and get it to kind of dry out. You don't want it soggy. Going on these seams, don't turn it around and have this thing going against the seam. That's not good. You want to have it going with the wheel. Okay, so we're all done with that first buffing, and it's looking, you know, much better. And now we're going to, I just kind of clean in between buffs with some furniture polish, just whatever you got, lemon pledge, whatever you got, and spray them down. It just gets the grime off of them. That way your next buff doesn't have any, you know, flakes of dirt in it. I just go around them like this. Oh, it's looking pretty good. Now we're going to go over it with a more of a finish buff. Just 1 second. Okay, so now I'm changing my wheel on my buffer to a very fine, like sheepskin, sort of a finish buffing wheel. Here's the old wheel that I used. Look at all the grime that came off of it. And, you know, I soaked these in a bucket of water with a bunch of ammonia in it, and it cuts this stuff right down. I soak them for a few days, and then I wash them out with the spray washer, and they come out like this. You know, for this kind of final sand, I use this stuff called liquid ebony, and it eliminates wheel marks. It gets out to a brilliant shine, but I'm not so sure you can get this stuff anymore. I mean, I'm not sure. You might be able to. I'd sure like to get some more if you can. Once again, I'm stirring it up. You don't need much of it at all. And I'm just going to put some on the shell. I have, on the wheel here. Put some on the wheel, and then I clean this floor up here, and I put this clean cloth down here. That way no particles can scratch my surface. I usually start right here at the seam. Seems to work pretty good. I'll just put a couple drops on here. You don't need much. You know what, that wasn't really getting the shine I wanted, so I think that is not going to work. I'm going to try this Imperial Micro Finishing Glaze, and you need just very, very little, like a drop, because you want to keep it pretty dry. And I also went back to a clean, regular buffing pad. I wasn't getting the finish I wanted out of this sheepskin one. So if you can see that, it's really taking... Whoops, lost contact with you there. Okay, as I was saying, as you can see, you've really got a nice brilliant shine now. You know, it's basically like a new drum. And I think that I'm happy with that. Although you can see some of the buffing compound in these cracks. I don't know what I'll do with that. But see, if I start running a toothbrush through them, to get that out, I'm going to dull the shell again. So it's a little bit of a delicate process. But I think I can live with that. I'm not that worried about it. I know the cracks are there. I just think it's really popping right now, so I'm pretty happy with it. So what I'm going to do now is I cleaned a little bit of this interior. I cleaned this area. As you can see, it's a lot cleaner. But as you see, it's starting to get real dirty again. Now my solution I use to clean with is detrimental to this ink they used here. So I have to be very careful around this number because I don't want to lose that number. See, ammonia will remove that, and I can't afford to lose that. That's part of the drum. So I'll be very careful around that number. And I'll clean the rest of the shell up, the inside. Then we're going to start cleaning these parts. Be right back with you. So I've sprayed some of my cleaning solution on there, which is 50-50 water, ammonia. Pretty strong solution. And I'll just use this brush on here. Try to get in those, all that grain. And you can see all this nasty stuff kind of coming off there. I mean, look at how filthy it is in this drum. Who knows where this thing's been. And this is where I'm going to have to be really careful, because I can't afford to lose this ink writing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just spray the solution on here, on this cloth here, and kindly clean around it. I'm just going to leave it just like that. I don't want to get any closer to it. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that interior there. I don't want to go any further than that with it. I think I can live with that. So I'll try to clean these wheel marks off of here. When you're buffing, the wheel leaves marks on the edges. Okay. Now I'm going to bring you guys over here to the buffing area. Okay, so I'm just getting the basic grime off of these, and then I'm going to go over here to the buffing wheels and actually buff them. Take the inserts out of them. What I usually do with these when I'm buffing is they get all full of that black residue, and so I take them and I spray them down. I find that carb cleaner works pretty darn good on them. I try to get that off before I give it the final buff. Trying to get all that black residue off of there. It's got the swivel nuts here. I think brake cleaner works pretty darn good on this residue too, so I'll just spray that on there real quick. These lugs are not perfect. Well, there she is on the shell there. I think I want all this nickel plating to match. I'm not so concerned about the condition because the condition on all of it is kind of bad. Even these rods are rough. So the shell's rough. Might as well put rough hardware on. But it'll all blend in really good. I'm really sure of it. And so I'm just going to continue on around the drum. Clean up all these parts. And I'll come right back up. Well, would you look at that? Seems like it's only been a second or so and you already got some lugs on the drum. Okay, well, I shined up all those lugs. And, you know, they're not great, but they're good enough for this drum. And so now I'm going to be working on this throw off. I want to show you what I'm talking about. Well, friends, it's come that part of the video where this is getting a little long, and we got a long way to go on this drum. These nickel plated drums take a long time, a lot of buffing and a lot of fiddling and finding screws and finding parts that work. So we're gonna have to do a number 3 video in this. This is video number 2, and I hope you've enjoyed it. It's a long process, but I think it's something you guys may get something out of. Maybe you'll have some suggestions of your own, of your processes. So until then, we'll catch you later. Thanks for visiting Vintage Drum Restoration Garage.